Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Yael and today I want to talk to you about your genius self, the seed in you, your unique DNA, your soul's DNA that makes you you. I believe that every one of us has a seed of genius, and the more we are connected to it, the better we feel. And when we disconnect to that seed, we feel lost and empty. I'm going to share with you a lot of knowledge from Kabbalah today. And for those of you who don't know Kabbalah, it's totally okay. It's the mystical part of Judaism. And what it means is that a person sees himself and sees the world as a reflection of the divine. Everything matters. Everything has a meaning. And the Kabbalist aspires to unite to God through everything. I personally really like this topic. I believe that each one of us is a genius, and we do sometimes things in our lives that block us to get there. And I want to shed some light and bring clarity to what we can do in order to improve that connection to ourselves and understand our system better. So I want to start with the tree of life in Kabbalah. And it's a very simplistic understanding of it. We have the right pillar and we have the left pillar. And if we look at the top triangle, we have Keter, Chochma, and Bina. So Chochma would be the right pillar and Bina would be the left pillar. And that is actually our brain. And all the rest of the tree of life is our body. The right pillar, Chochma, is the right part of our brain. And the left pillar is the left part of our brain. So the right is all about unity, abstract thinking, unconditional love, thinking in a parallel kind of situation, very creative, very giving, but very abstract, like I said. And the left pillar, which is the left part of the brain, is more about the self. It's about the ego. It has the idea of language inside of it. It has the body, identity. And the idea is that in order to achieve unity, both of those have to work together. So in a sense, the right pillar is thought and the left pillar is matter. And the reason that I'm bringing this up in a video about being genius is because part of our achievement of genius is a communication between our left and right brain and understanding what's happening in between the two. So we have to have the left brain to cooperate with the right. Because no matter what kind of thought you have and what kind of plan you had originated in your right brain, you have to have the left brain, which is more emotional and more about the body, to respond to the right and work together. So it's all about the communication between the two. And there is a beautiful story about the sun and the moon. So the story is that at first, when God created the sun and the moon, they were equal. They were both projecting the same kind of light to our planet. And of course, this is just like a make-believe story. We don't actually believe this story in Judaism, but it helps to clarify the idea that I'm going to present to you. So anyways, in the beginning, both of them were equal. They were projecting the same light. And it actually was the moon that came to God and said, you know what? I don't think that in order to achieve unity in the world, it's good to have two rulers, two kings that might fight who is projecting more light and fight for power. So the moon agreed to get empty and get full with the light of the sun. And if we take that to our right and left brain, the idea is that the left brain wants to be like the right, and it fills up through the ideas that the right brain projects to the left. And in Judaism, we also have a prayer to the moon. We actually have it. It's not that we believe that it's like an entity or it's maybe seems pagan, but it's just symbolic. And the symbol is that we pray that the moon gets fuller each month. And it's a symbol of us as humans to be fuller and to get as full and similar to God. So be as God and as giving as He is. And when we have the right, which is unconditional love, and the left, which is all about ego, we want to come to a place that a person understands and sees for his benefit what it means to share more of himself with the world and to be a little less selfish and be more about how can I do more to others and actually see how that affects him to the better. So geniusness is all about how to take your own qualities and see how they can serve the world. And that happens a lot with trial and error. It's about us taking an idea and experimenting with it in our own self and see how it works. So the first thing we are establishing here in this video is that we have to have this bridge between left and right in order to achieve genius. And that might take a while, and it's part of understanding what is in our system and what is in every person's heart or soul DNA or mind. Getting closer to that seed requires a lot of time and a lot of effort. And as we get older, we realize that the more we seek to achieve that understanding, the more fulfilled we are. If we want to understand what's going on in our system, we have to develop deep listening. Now, deep listening is a term that you're probably familiar with, but I might help shed more light on it through Kabbalah and through things that I picked up. When we start deep listening to ourselves, it's one of the senses of the soul that we are developing. Now, there are our physical senses, which are see, hear, taste, smell, and touch. And then we have the 12 senses of the soul, and these are deeper internal senses. And one of those senses is deep listening. And by the way, it's connected to the sign of Leo and to the sun. Deep listening means to agree to allow the stream of whatever that wants to come to us to come. There are different kinds of people. Let's say if you read a book and there is something that you don't really understand that is written in the book, you might, want to close the book and do something else that you understand more. And maybe if you read a little more in the book, there's another thing that you don't understand and you might get frustrated. Now, the idea of deep listening is that you have to agree to say, okay, I might not understand this now, but I agree to put this aside and continue to read in the book. And it might make sense after I get the whole picture. So there are things that are happening in our system, that are happening in our mind that we might not understand now. But that's not a reason not to listen to ourselves. We have to agree that we might understand inklings, we might understand intuitions, only later on they will make sense. But to sit and listen to ourselves is key number one. Developing the habit of being intimate with whatever is happening to us, whatever we're feeling. You can use art as your method. You can use abstract art, music, anything, any kind of channeling to start understanding who you are and what your soul wants to tell you. And the stream is also not about criticizing it. So it's kind of like peeling an onion. There are different layers to it, and maybe in the beginning it might not make sense, but the more you peel it, then you'll find your treasure. And you have to agree to spend a lot of time and be very intimate with yourself, of course, and combining knowledge that might help you and then test it for yourself. Speaking of knowledge that might help you, there's another idea that I want to introduce that's called a first vessel and a second vessel. Again, this is from Kabbalah. And to understand this a little better, I'm going to take an example from the kitchen. If we cook, for example, rice, the pot that we're cooking with is considered to be the first vessel because that pot is touching the fire directly. and when the rice is ready, we move it usually to a bowl or to another container, and that is the second vessel. And this idea of first vessel and second vessel refers to who we take information from. Now, if we take the newspaper, for example, the newspaper is not the first vessel. Usually stories in the newspaper go through many people and versions until they get to you, the reader. So when you have some sort of inquiry or question or something that you want to get more familiar to, you have to go to sources which are first vessels, which can share from their personal experience. And the symbol of the fire and the pot, the fire can also refer to as God, as the connection to God. And you, ultimately, your genius self wants to be that first vessel of connection to God and not to go to other vessels that will explain you maybe what is that connection. One of the tools that I use in order to get closer to myself is a tool that I learned from Julia Cameron. Julia Cameron is a teacher that teaches creativity. She wrote a book called The Artist Way, and she recommends to do what's called morning pages, which are pages that are written in the morning. It's 3 pages in handwriting, and it's a stream of consciousness. And the reason that I'm sharing it specifically in this video is because oftentimes I wrote things in my morning pages that took a lot of repetition until my conscious mind would notice it and would do something with it. So I might have written in the past things like, I hate my life, I need a change. And it took many, many days until I actually did something in order to change it. Or another example is, it took me time and repetition to state to myself people that I like or dislike and who I want to be more around or less around. So we have to agree, first of all, to let that stream come through us. It's like a river, and blocking it is almost blocking the divine. And then if we don't block it, we also have to come to the agreement of, if we don't understand something now, it's okay, keep on going. So maybe at that day, I didn't understand what to do with the material that I was presenting to myself, but later on, things started to click. Coming back to deep listening, it's something that I also shared in one of my videos about listening as a sense. It's one of the most complex senses in our system. It's considered to be the highest sense, by the way, because through hearing, we can see and feel multiple layers of a situation and a person. You, for example, can hear a lot through my voice. If we really deeply listen to other people's voices, we can hear their whole life story and current situation, even health, and what they want to do with their life. A lot of that through their voice. The voice is like a signature. And the ultimate development of the voice and sound is to be able, through sounds, to see visions, and through those visions to understand more and more about what we were told. So to take sound and to turn it into sight, and also to have this ability to hear the echo of the voice, and through the echo to understand what was the meaning of the voice. And no one else can do that for you. I spend a lot of time listening to other people's opinions of me, of what I have to offer and say, and it almost stole my ability to listen to myself, because every time we listen to other people, it weakens our intuition. And when we're developing deep listening to ourselves, we're strengthening the bond with our higher self, with our keter, with our divine mission, and we have that strength in us to understand and interpret everything that is happening around us. The next thing I want to share is about being genius and incorporating your environment. It takes time in life for some people to realize that they need other people in order to grow. And the first thing I personally learned about Kabbalah was about partnership, and that is what drew me to Kabbalah. And it was something that a rabbi said about a person cannot be a whole person if he's not married or if he's not partnered. And that through partnership, that is our hardest learning, and it's our biggest tikkun, it's our biggest correction of the soul. It's one of our biggest life lessons we came here to do. And when we're looking into getting into our genius state, according to Kabbalah, and we don't need to accept this, but I think it's really cool to learn about it from this perspective, and it made sense for me. That's why I'm sharing it. You have to have peace in your home. You have to have peace with your partner. You have to have peace in your love life, your romance, in order for you to reach a higher level of your consciousness and a higher level of your connection to your genius self, or your expression in the world. Because when that aspect of ourself is fulfilled, we are doing a great service to the world. Because when God created humanity, he created men and women, and when they come together on one man and a woman, they create a bond and they create a new entity, and that entity is a whole person. And that whole person now can rise to a higher level of consciousness. So in a way, every relationship has a different frequency. And it's very experimental to realize what's the dynamic inside of the partnership. Who is the sun and who is the moon? Who is giving a certain light and who is receiving it? Also, in many partnerships, there should be an understanding of who can teach more on each topic. Maybe on one topic, somebody is very spiritual, so they can lead the spiritual aspect of the relationship and they're in charge to take it to the higher level. And on another topic, if somebody is very good with dealing with daily chores or cooking or taking care of kids or creativity, whatever it is, then that person is in charge to bring new ideas to the relationship. And I can share about myself that when this aspect of my life was not going very well, I almost wanted to cling to spirituality as a form of saving, that I felt very healed by it and very comfortable, but it was almost like I'm brushing a side of me to the side. I didn't want to pay attention to it. And Kabbalah says that no, you have to pay attention to that. It's fundamental for your development. And without that being correct, being at peace, it's impossible to reach the highest level. In the Eastern cultures, it's called samadhi. It's complete bliss. You can't get there without a partner, according to Judaism. So, for example, when Buddhists look at Buddha and say he reached it alone, Kabbalists come and question that and say, we believe that a full person is not only full when he comes into bliss in himself by himself, but also bliss around him with a family and how he treats his whole environment. And of course, his wife or husband, whichever person we're talking about. For me, it's a great motivator because oftentimes I still am very attracted to spiritual studies. But when I come home, I have patterns of behavior with my partner that are not healed. And that is like a red light saying that needs attention and that needs correction. Because whatever happens externally is also happening internally. There's a part in you that's not healed and needs to be understood. So when we're talking about the genius self, it is also the completion between men and women externally and then internally with the right and left pillars, the right and left part of our brains. So I'll leave you with a last thought, and that thought is about influencers. And I believe that we live in a time right now that the idea of following influencers and being affected by opinions of other people is something pretty common. And I want to challenge that and say that oftentimes me and maybe you turn to look at other people because it is scary to face ourselves and see what's going on in our system. And I hope that we can grow together, you, the viewer, and me, and get to the point that we become our own influencer, that we decide what we want to watch according to what's happening in our system. We attract material that we want to study because of the deep listening of the direction that we want to head towards. And that everything in our lives becomes more intentional and less a matter of habit, of scrolling through Instagram or the news or random books, but rather everything serves for your purpose, for why you're here, and helps you develop one step at a time. So thank you so much for watching. It's really nice to be back. If you watched till here, I'm sorry that I'm not posting that much, but I'll try to post more and share more. Thank you so much. Bye.